just going to start with the background. Now, as always with painting, there is a few different ways to go about things. I'll just talk about some of the other options to do the background. So because the flowers are quite large here, one option would be to cut some paper out, like round pieces of paper, and really stick them down well where those flowers are. That's one way to do it, and then you would just go over everything to form that background around the flowers. Another option would be to use a sponge. If you have a look at my YouTube, there's sponging work, and sponging work is like you just use like, you know, those car wash sponges. They're quite big, and you just break them up small so that they're like the size of like a plum, and you dip that in the paint and you just go backwards and forwards over your canvas. So sponging is quick, easy blends. It blends quickly. So that's another option for the background. We're going to keep it simple and use the brushes today. But before we do that, I'm not going to do the whole background once again because the subject is quite big. The yellow flowers is quite big. The main reason being, if we did a lot of blue underneath yellow, we'll end up with having to do more layers than necessary to get the real yellow. So I guess the first thing I want you to do, I haven't said about it, is draw in the center of these flowers. So grab a pencil. I'm going to run away. So just noticing whereabouts the position. So these two at the bottom are like just above halfway, you could say. Just above halfway. One slightly lower than the other. Just done the center, and then I've just done one around the outside as well. Background's still a bit wet. And while we're on the green, we will do the stems. Now feel free to play with your colours. Go with your preferences. The stems look like they've got a bit of brown in them, so using the brown that you had before for the middle of your flowers. Pull some of that aside onto a section of your plate, but you won't need much with the brown because the brown's very overpowering. Pull some of that to make the browny green for the stems. And if you're looking for that sort of olivey colour, which the stems look like that olivey greeny colour, a little bit more yellow will help with that. Okay, let's see the picture. So I'm up to like a more of a nearly a limey green. And I'm going to do that for my stems as well. And the stem height, check out the height of the stems. They're at 4 different heights, like lengths, I should say. Going over a dark colour too, so later on we'll get into the whites and yellows, but we just want to lay down those darker sections of the leaf. Once we bring in the whites and yellows later, it will all come together. Yeah. And some of these darker sections are quite dark, just enough to show that it's a leaf. It just adds that shape. And you can even use, like, I'm just looking at the bottom 2 leaves, like the sections closest to the jar are so dark, it could nearly be black. But in this case, we're not using black. We could just introduce the tiniest bit of the chocolate brown. Or we could darken our green with the chocolate brown. There's always so many options. And of course the other thing is with the leaves, all the colours are wet. So try not to blend them all together. Try to keep the shades that you're introducing separate. By not playing too much. The dark, and over here there's a section that's dark, and then this dark section here is quite important because it's telling us where the table is that it's sitting on. So it's like a slatey blue colour. All right, and I'm just going to bring that through at the top here. And it's just like a feathery sort of look, so not too much paint on your brush. So starting from the outside, working in, not the other way around, so that the paint sort of runs out. You actually sort of run out of paint on the brush as you come into the middle. And you can play around with this. What this is also doing, so I like I actually like sort of creating a frame around my paintings. So a darker colour on the outside will do that and draw the eye into the middle where the focus is, which in this case is the flowers. So I'm actually going to go right around the outside quite a bit. And really noticing that there's pretty much a straight line across this bottom bit, which is making it look like the base of a table, which that's quite important. And lining that up with where the end of your stems are. That doesn't look right. So you can kind of notice what we do in a lot of paintings. We start with the darker colours and come to the lighter later. Yeah. That's what we're doing here for sure. Now while we've got this dark colour on a brush, I'm going to pop the base of the jar, the base and the sides, both sides of the jar. And then we'll come in later with the white over the top. So straight. So as things are drying, I'm just adding some more lines through my stem just to get that 3D look in some different shades. So I'm keeping the right side dark of the stems and the lighter side on the other side. So that just tells the viewer where the light's coming from. There, I've just introduced quite a light green to those stems just to give that 3D effect. No. All right, so I'm just waiting for those flowers to dry. They're going to be interesting. And using the yellow that I did start making up, I'm going to play with my leaves. So bringing in the lighter shades of yellow over my leaves. Once again, not playing too much because it's very easy to re-wet newly dried paint. Ideally, we would let things dry a lot longer. So starting to come together now with the yellow. on the leaves, which I'm enjoying. In the end, it's just lots of feathered strokes. And now I'm even adding some white to those leaves right at the edge, and getting them to blend. So the top edge is the whitest, signifying that that's where the light is shining. Just light little strokes on the edge of those leaves. So we've introduced a lot of different shades of green, now yellow and white there, but trying not to play too much, otherwise it will just all blend. Yeah, focusing on the edge of your leaves, that's where the biggest contrast will be with the lightest colours. But just remembering that the darker shades are underneath. And just dabbing. So it's even like an ochre colour. And just light dabs. Okay, so the white around the jar. So we've got a circle going around the top of the stem. And then another one a bit lower. But it doesn't go all the way across. And then we've got from both sides these downward strokes from both sides. And if you're really clever, you can actually see a line going around the back of the stems if you've got space for that. Or just don't make space because it's not hard. All right, and then just, I'm not going to do the writing on the jar. I think it detracts from the painting altogether. But if you'd like to add your name or a name. So this white is just coming inside of the outline that we've already done at the sides. And then down at the base, notice that there's a circle that goes around the back. Which signifies the base of the jar. So it's like that shape, but like an eye shape. It's 3 horizontal lines. Alright. How's that look? Just getting a little bit of perspective every now and again, going, looking back from your copy, just to get that bit of perspective. All right, now while I've got the white, I'm just going to do a few more dots through the stamens. Higher up in the stamens this time. You can find where the light is falling on the higher part. Right. Right, I'm just going to go back and play with my leaves with a bit more yellow again, because they've dried a bit more. And actually also just noticing that in the reference, the stamens sort of at the edges sort of feather into the petals. So it's not like a perfect circle like mine are, so I could work on that a bit more.
So sometimes the more we play, we're actually not really achieving a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Yeah, we've got lots of blue coming in some sections here. All right, and I'm just gonna around the edge here, just sort of little fanned out. I mean, it's still, my yellow's still wet. So being careful. Actually, this could be quite an orange colour even. Yeah, let's try that. And just playing around that edge. With little thin wispy strokes in your smallest brush. Right, I'm just going to go back to my leaves with a bit more yellow, because that's dried a bit more now. There you go. Even a bit more light green. The best thing to do at this stage is to really wait for the petals to dry before I add any more there. So personally, I'd like to work with some more yellow and white, particularly around the edge where the blue is still showing through.
Okay.
And I imagine you guys might be in the same position. So in saying that, there's probably not a whole lot more I can do. Oh, actually there is one thing I can do. I could add some of the light blue through the background. So making a light blue, see how there is lighter blue areas in the background. This will actually look really good. So I've picked up my old blue that I had for the background and made a lighter blue by adding some white. I'm just going to bring a few hints of that through the background there. Pretty much dry brushing. That's really looking pretty good. especially through that table section. Look there. Maybe just in this background here next to the jar, closer to the jar, closer here.